Hi, it's me. Hi all, it's me, Aki from Bringforth. This is set 75, part 1. And I'd like to do a part about the Christian end of the life cycle, or perhaps more accurately, the Christian belief in reincarnation. And this isn't, perhaps you can say, the widely accepted view of Christianity, but it is the one that makes sense to me. As technology slowly advances, we will have the required methods to bring people back from dead for a longer and longer period of time. First, it will just be people who have had their hearts stopped and people who have been in freezing water and so on. But eventually, this technology will enable us to basically bring people who have been clinically dead for years or decades back to life, and even then, and from that point further into the past. And as we breed as a species, eventually our ability to produce new offsprings will be lowered because our, let's say, gravity isn't sufficient to bring new parts into our collective and have those become new souls in a way, or in other words, to have new children. So eventually we will have a system where, to keep the human numbers growing and to keep our species growing, we will have to reincarnate the people who have died a long time ago. So eventually we will go backwards throughout history and start reincarnating people who have died a long time ago. And this will be, from our point of view, real, because it will be the accepted timeline of the person who has existed before. So it will be like cloning, but with an understanding that the person is in the mind of the clone, or the clone is the person that existed before, unlike modern day cloning, where the understanding is that the same person isn't the person that you are getting from the clone, because life experiences matter. So eventually you will get a situation where everyone who has died is valuable to society to be reincarnated. And then we will have a situation where people will seek to reincarnate people who died. So from the point of view of the person who dies, you will see, depending on how you view the situation, either a bright light, followed by your relatives looking at you, followed by you making choices to be with your relatives or not, or a darkness, and then your relatives. It depends on how you view the death process itself. Is your last awareness when you die of death itself, or is your last awareness of your last thought before you die? That's what will matter. That's what will make it appear as all white or all black, depending on how you view life. So you will reincarnate into being the same person, but at the moment you are born into your second life, you will know that you are immortal, because science has made you immortal. Because if you die now, there will be someone somewhere with your genetic material who will reincarnate you again and again and again, and then you will eventually become more loving, because there is no other option for you at that point, and you will become godlike in your mental state or heart state. So when we talk about the love of God, we aren't actually talking about a distinguishable separate entity, talking about God as a individual being in some heavenly paradise. We're talking about the lineage of life before you that makes it certain that you will eventually be in so much love from the children that are spawned after you, that their yearning to be with you will make you live forever. So all troubles are transitory, all worries are transitory, all arguments and all fights and wars and such are transitory, because eventually humanity will not be able to produce more children, but rather they will be able to resurrect their elders. And as those elders are resurrected, they will have the ability to increase our ability to have children. So the only way for our species to expand is to generate everybody back in time to the moment where we say that this is our species and this is an animal, this isn't our territory. Somewhere where that line exists will be the line of where we will resurrect these people. It could be that we don't want to resurrect every single individual bacteria. It could be that we don't want to resurrect pets. It could be that we don't want to resurrect other races. I don't know. But the reality is that we will resurrect everyone, as far as we consider them to be human. So for most humans living in the modern world, that would be pets included. That will be the pet rock that you had when you were a kid. That will be basically everyone that you can conceivably think of being resurrected to be resurrected. So what you see when these people talk of God and paradise is an allegory from a time before we had medical science and an understanding of the possibility of resurrecting people, and medical science and things like how to restart the heart and how to resurrect someone who's been underwater for 30 minutes and so on. So we don't really need anymore the idea of a God that is separate from us. It is us. It is the love that we feel for our children and will feel in time for all of humanity, effectively raising all of humanity back to life again. So that is what I mean when I say that this view of Christianity makes sense to me. God is just the previous generation's love for you and the children's love for you who haven't yet been born. It isn't an intangible individual person sitting on top of a cloud deciding that this person gets resurrected and this person doesn't get resurrected. It's our common spirit telling us that we will resurrect all of us, as long as even some of us think that they are worth resurrecting. So that will be what I think Christianity's heaven will be like. So modern Christianity should be very technologically apt. They should be very able to use technology to resurrect things and to be aware of life. They should be very highly medically minded. They should be aware of this possibility. So eventually we get a world that is like the paradise described in the Bible, an earthly garden of infinite delights. This is what I believe Christianity is trying to say, but hasn't been able to say with conviction. They haven't been able to explain that they don't mean an external God. That era is in the past when we talked about an external God. We talk about the Son of Man evolving to become the Son of God by its own actions. And that Son of God is what we mean by infinite life, so that your believers will continue to resurrect you and keep your spirit alive until we get to a point where technology can resurrect you and keep your spirit alive. And then eventually all humanity, right down to the pets that we used to have, including the pet rocks that we used to have, has been resurrected, and then birth rates start to decline, and like a balloon that doesn't explode but slowly deflates and slowly lets its air out, humanity goes extinct and a new race begins. This will be the end result of the evolutionary process. We will be one of the first species who is able to have every single member of its species that ever existed on the same table and say, we want these attributes added to our genetic structure for the next round. We don't want these attributes for our genetic structure for the next round. And then when all is done, the bravest of us will go beyond the veil and forget that they were ever human and resurrect into this new species. This is what I believe we are talking about. This is as close to a Christian view as I dare to go. I'm not a Christian, but this is to me what Christianity should be about. Technological advance that brings about paradise. So that is my understanding of what we are aiming for. Everyone will be resurrected and live an infinite life in an earthly garden of paradise. So when you die, you will either feel an infinite light or an infinite darkness, followed by seeing your family, followed by being told that you are a replica of what you were, but that you are alive, and this is why, because you have been made to be alive by the desire of all those who were alive before you. And this paradise will be whatever you want it to be, because at that point the technology is so advanced that it will take you an infinitely long time to understand how they make the paradise, but you will eventually understand it. So this paradise is as close to an actual paradise as I can picture it. I understand what it is that they are aiming for. It makes sense to me. I'm listening to Children of the Nile. It is an interesting game. Its soundtrack is quite good. I'm liking the Egyptian ancient flavor of it. It makes me feel good. So, in short, I would imagine that when I die, I see a bright light, and then I'm standing outside the house of my parents, and I walk in, and my parents aren't home, but there is salmon bread on the counter in the kitchen. The sauna is on, and when I walk to the sauna, there is a bong there with weed next to it and a note on the washing machine that reads, "Don't overdo it." And when I close the door to the shower room, I hear my parents coming home. I imagine that being paradise, the first moments of my entry in the paradise. That is the place for me. Then I would be able to slowly start to adapt to the world that I see and be able to understand what I am actually seeing, that I am dead for the first time, but that is not the end time. So I'm gonna go take a smoke, and I'm going to think about if there's anything else I want to say about this, and I will be back shortly. So, on to our next Christian topic. Or let's just say my final words would be, were I to die with this particular thought in mind, would be, put the sauna on, I will be home soon. Home soon. That would be my final word. And I believe it is a apt choosing for final words. So, laita sauna päälle, mä himas ihan just. That would be my final word. So, I believe that we all have a soul double that isn't the opposite gender as most people would say, but is you, and if you've lived a life of being hard on yourself, it will be one that has lived a hard life, but it will be very, very similar in physical appearance to you. It will be the one that lives the life that you don't want to live, that goes through all the experiences that for you would be too painful or too hard. And that other self is on the other brawn, I believe the word is, that is floating in this fifth-dimensional space where the Big Bang generates our dimension and our direction, which we call matter, and it generates this other direction called antimatter. And whenever you wish for this other person to not be there, they will simply vanish, but they will be there again as soon as you think of it. So this can be described as being your angel, but it isn't really an angel in the sense that it lives in paradise. It's actually an angel that lives in hell as far as you can understand it, because it goes through all the experiences that are too hard for you, so that those experiences don't vanish, that there is no deficit of experience, that you don't have to live through those. And when you die, you merge back with this other self and become your basically true self that has lived through all things that can be imagined by you. I've seen this phenomena once when my parents split and my mother moved to her own apartment and my father moved to I think it's a hotel where he lives now. I saw this person that looked exactly like my mother, but it was as if looking at something that lived a hard life that wasn't my mother, and the face was different and the eyes were different, but it was very clearly my mother. It wore the same clothing and had a slightly different body structure, but it was, I would say, 98% the same person in what it looked like. And she stared at me inquisitively, but said nothing and did nothing, and I never saw her again. So this is as close as I've been to seeing an angel in real life. Seeing the body double for my mother when she was in trouble, the angel swooped down to check on her, is what I feel would be a apt analogy of what I saw. I'm looking at Norse map here and I'm noting that they don't have Aral Sea on this map. I'm noting that the elimination of the water in the Aral Sea is probably the reason it's not visible on this map. I'm just thinking about that out loud. So those are my thoughts on the Christendom and its own mysteries. So basically, I would be open to becoming a Christian minister, but I'm not a Christian, so it would feel a little blasphemous to me. But I'm not completely against it, so I wouldn't be opposed to talking about my view of love and the universe to the community at large and trying to explain what I feel, but it would be a bit difficult. I'm seeing from Norse Map that the Israeli and the Saudi Arabian community agrees with me in becoming a minister. They think that it would be a green choice if the language can be translated properly, or perhaps the hard way choice is a better word. This Norse Map is a wonderful communication tool if you use the densities as colors and meaning intent model, and you think of green as the density of love and blue as the density of information and orange as the density of just being and so on. It's yellow for social interactions and red for base interactions, and most often saying no or delay and so on. It's a wonderful communication tool. I don't know how I ever got along without it. It's incredibly useful. It allows me to take a glance at the world situation and have the world powers agree with me on a glance. It's incredible. I should have a smartphone just so I can stare at Norse Map. I can go to people and go beep beep boop beep boop boop beep beep. Star Trek scanner. No, but really, I think that's all I wanted to say, and Norse Map is really useful. So perhaps more on this topic in a future update. Thank you all.